Now, if I could change directions a little bit, for those of you who are into the paranormal, or basically just are into ghosts and the spirits and all that, we had some interesting occurrences here. I had in the beginning, when I had first bought this place, we'd have visitors still coming in and out because the place had kind of been, on the downslide for a long time. And some of these, there's a couple guys that were old timers that came in and said that they had heard, again, whether this is urban legend or not, that during the 50s there were still some prohibition guys around. And story is that somebody got out of hand here one night, was whacked by the mob, and the body could be buried in that room behind us. So now, I take the place over and had a few instances I'd like to share with you if we have time. There is a showcase up, a couple showcases behind the bar, okay? And one of the showcases, at the first day we took it over, I had friends volunteer to come in and we were cleaning the place. The top and the bottom shelf were full of various things, and the middle shelf was empty, but the door wouldn't shut. A couple of times my friend tried, and finally she reaches in there and pulls out, there's a ribbon with a bulb of garlic on it, which of course, everybody knows what that's for. And she says, "Hey Tommy, look, you got vampires." And everybody kind of chuckled, and she threw it in the trash. Well, come to find out, the previous owner that had it for a short time, he was from Albania, and in that part of the world they apparently use garlic to ward off spirits. So it had a reason to be there. So anyway, my friend concludes by she puts a bunch of stuff in this shelf, and now the door will shut, and we leave. We return in the morning. I'm the only one with keys at this point. The door behind the to the showcase is open, and everything that she had stacked in there is now stacked on the back bar, almost exactly like she had put it in there. The glass shelf looked like it had been perfectly cut in half, no cracks, no chips. And obviously, if you were to look at it, you could see that if that shelf would have collapsed, everything would have rolled out and hit the floor. Now, the last thing that she had put in the day before were a couple of bobbleheads. They were just kind of sitting in there, a little known Red Wing and a little known Tiger. And these bobbleheads were now next to each other in the front, and their heads were going like 100 miles an hour when I walked in there. And I walked behind the bar and I put my hands on them and they just stopped like that. So it's kind of creepy. Now, a little bit of time goes by, and up until a couple of months ago, there was a fluorescent light fixture right above us here. It had been there for forever. And we had some work done here not too long ago where this conduit was put in, and the guy doing the work took down the fluorescent light fixture because it didn't work. Now, interestingly enough, sometime before that, this door behind us over here, I come down in the morning and it's slammed shut. I mean, the door is never shut. We usually have something block it open. So I spent a good deal of time trying to force the door open, turning the doorknob back and forth. Finally, I put my shoulder into it with full force, and it popped open, and when it did, this light popped on. Okay, so I came over here and looked at it. I hit the switch and it wouldn't go off. It stayed on for about 24 hours. Finally, it went off. I didn't think a whole lot of it. A couple weeks went by, came down here again one morning, same thing. Door, you had to force the door open. And when I force the door open, I get hit with this intense gust of cold air, which usually there's a sure sign that there are spirits on the premises. Okay? So again, this light pops on above me. And this day I had to have somebody doing some work upstairs, and I went up and I asked him, I said, "Hey, can you do me a favor, come down and look at this light?" I said, "The thing goes on by itself, but it won't go off when I hit the switch." So he goes out to his truck and he comes back with this electrical tester with a meter on it, comes down and he hooks it up, and he turns to me with these big eyes. He says, "Dude, I don't know how to tell you this." He says, "You've got light, but you have absolutely no power going to this light." So, I mean, I was like, wow. So he wrapped up the meter and kind of said, "All right, I'm out." And he left, and I haven't seen him since, to be honest with you. So that was kind of freaky. Now, it happened a couple other times after that. One time when I was talking to people about it and I stamped my foot on the floor, I said there must be a hidden switch, and sure enough, the light popped on. Okay. We had some regulars of ours were in here one day, and we had it was after a hockey game. We were pretty crowded, and one of their friends was a big jovial guy, and you could hear him above the crowd going, "Yeah, ghost, my ass, there's no such thing, blah, 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 there's no ghost here." So he walked in the men's room, and about 30 seconds later, we heard this bang, and he comes running out, and his eyes are real big, and he's got this mark across his forehead. He said, "I swear to God," he says, "I'm standing in front of the urinal doing my business, and I got pushed from behind so hard it felt like my feet were coming off the ground, and I cracked my head off the wall. And I turned around, there was nobody in the men's room with me." So he comes back, you know, periodically, but he won't go in the men's room. He goes outside the alley to do his business. So it's kind of interesting the effect it would have on people. Now I'll wind it down a little bit. I'll tell you, interestingly, we had, there's probably been 1,200 people come down this basement ever since a lot of the things were revealed, and we've had articles written about us. People take photos, you know, that kind of thing, and every so often we get things appear in these photos. Not too often. We had a gentleman out in California who was a Michigan native who was reading about us. And he came into town for an event and had his family, and he came down here for lunch and took the tour. And his 8-year-old grandson was here, and he started getting scared when I was talking about ghosts and how the building was haunted. So he says to his grandson, he says, "Don't worry." He says, "Tommy's ghost is cool." He says, "Tommy, you know, doing this." He says, "Do me a favor, take my picture with your ghost." So he stands in front of the tunnel with his arm out, anyway, like he had his arm around someone. And interestingly enough, the next photo of him appears to be on the other side. All right. And like I said, over the last couple of years, we've had people that will take photos and will call me up and say, "You're not going to believe what's in them." And I've seen some of them. The most interesting one, we had a lady that was down here with some friends, and they took some photos, and she calls me up and says, "You're not going to believe what's in these photos. I got to show you this." So we meet down here the next day. She turns on her camera, and not only were the images, the orbs or whatever she had, they were all gone, but everybody else in the pictures were gone. So she had about 15 photos of our tunnel entrance with nobody there. Pretty interesting. Now I'll close by telling you one of my personal experiences, and it was kind of jarring. I had this building was closed for about 3 years at one point. It was in probate, and it was kind of creepy and dark and just kind of sitting here. And there's an investment company behind us, and they have a security guard who just recently retired after 12 years. In the church, when they have events, they have volunteers work in the parking lot. So it had been verified. Saw you jump. They had been verified that by both of them that they had seen during this period on more than one occasion figures walk out of the wall of the church in dead of night, like dressed in robes, and walk down the alley a little bit and just kind of fade away. So I'm still digesting this, and a couple weeks went by, and we'd had a hockey game, and it was raining and windy that night, and it was closing time, and we still were pretty crowded in here. And I stepped out front, and we turned the lights off in the alley, and something caught my attention, like it was a shadow on the church, and I started hearing some crunching, like somebody was walking in the alley. When I stepped off the stoop and looked down, I swear to you, there was this guy walking toward me, you know, dressed in a white suit and a white fedora and dark glasses. And as I tried to speak to him, he just evaporated right in front of my eyes. And I swear to God, every inch of my body goosebumped up, and I just came in here and ordered a double. So, but as sure as I'm standing here, I knew he was there. I felt it. We've had stories from other people that a couple of different people have told me, and as you remember back at the beginning of the tour, I told you about how this place was a bell factory and how they would roll the bells out these big openings on the alley side. 2 different people have told me that have been parked in the alley that they've seen an arm come out of the wall of this building. So, I mean, you know, who knows? And, you know, in closing, I got to tell you, you know, you've got 2 centuries almost of activity going on here, and who knows who's been here and what's happened here. I do know I don't feel threatened here. I've let it known that you guys were here first. So, but we're very excited to see what future visits from the paranormal investigative team will turn up, and I'm excited at the prospects.